folks in, yay! There we go. Perfect. There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm just getting us set up here. There we go. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and put and unenable the waiting room. Perfect. Perfect. All right. We are set up, you guys. We are good to go. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to have all of these wonderful people. I was gonna say like in a room together, like quote unquote, but you know what? Close enough. Close enough. Yeah, it's 2025. It's a room. Deal with it. Uh, so I'm gonna let everybody go around and kind of introduce ourselves. First, my name is Sara. I am the director and owner of the Atlanta School of Photography. I have owned the school now for 8 years, a little over 8 years, which is insane. Every time I say that number, I can't believe it. Wow. And a little bit about myself outside of the school professionally, I started and still do work with the Woodruff Art Center, photographing a lot of their performances and kids events and things of that nature. And then also on that note, I am now doing even more into when it comes to photography with flying dresses is my like next area of just excitingness for adding on to my career. I'm learning a lot. The last one that we did, I spent, I think, 3 hours um, just getting seams and wrinkles out of about like a football yard worth of fabric. So yeah. So we're
Wow.
all learning along the way. It's so fun that way. So yeah, Tiffany, go for it if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm like, we got to talk about that
I
later.
know we got to do, yeah.
Well, yes, I'm Tiffany Crenshaw. I am the owner and artist behind Animal House Photography, also Tiffany Crenshaw Education. So those are kind of side by side. One is my client-based photography business, and the other is educating photographers. I live in Huntsville, which is not that far from Alabama or from Atlanta. So if you ever want to come have a little visit, I'll show you around. But I live here with my husband and 3 young kids. I started this business photographing my daughters. They're 12 and 8, but they were babies at the time. And now we have a toddler. And so it just continues to evolve. I photograph the same way that I want my children photographed. And so my focus is a lot on storytelling and just documenting real moments. So I'm so excited to be here with you guys tonight and just be able to have some great conversations.
Yay, thanks for being
Awesome.
here, Tiff. Yeah, thanks for being here, Tiffany. We appreciate it. And B, go for it.
Hi, everyone. My name is B. Trofort Wilson. I'm an editorial and commercial sports and fitness photographer here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm also the owner of Be Fearless Studios, which is a rental photography studio here in Atlanta where we do photography studio rentals, equipment rentals, workshops, and events. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
And I'll mention in a second, but we've got workshops either currently posted or in the works with
Yes.
everyone here. So if you want to know more about that, I'm going to send links out and all that good stuff later. And we've got Timothy. Timothy's on the road dealing with a mini crisis, but want to make sure that he gets in as well too. So yeah, Timothy.
Awesome. Yeah, so I started for a little health crisis, but I'm excited here. My name is Abel.
Oh no, I think we're losing reception. I'm so
The
sorry,
States.
Timothy. Let me see. We'll try to get you to jump on a bit later if you can. Okay.
Okay, so
Okay, there we go. Yeah, Timothy's going to try to be able to join us in a little bit, but I know that there's a little bit going on and dealing with so many things at
yeah, sorry
once.
about that.
No, you're good. You're good. Don't worry. Let me know. Feel free to pop back in whenever you get a chance.
Yeah. So, is it better now? Sorry, guys.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So, in short, I'm an editor. Awesome. So, I work in Atlanta and New York in the editorial markets. So, mostly modeling agencies and independent designers. But I love documentary photography, fashion photography, and I would say I specialize mostly in timeless black and white photography. And I'm just excited to be here and learn from everybody.
Thanks, Timothy. We so appreciate you as much as I know you've got going on and just being able to hear what you have to say. So, one thing I was really excited about having everyone here is that everyone's really coming from different areas of expertise. Each of us are coming from a completely wildly different spot of photography. And so sometimes I know when people are starting their photography business that they say like, oh, you know what, maybe it's going to be like this one track sort of thing. I'm here to tell you that is not the case. We've all had very extremely wildly different experiences in each of our respective genres of photography, and even more beyond that as well. So that's why I hand selected the three to be able to be here today to talk about that. And I think there's going to be a lot of different things. So I want to be able to also put in the chat, wherever our chat ran off to. Here we go. So if you have questions for us, please do not hesitate to throw them into the chat window there. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get it kicked off because, also, if you guys want to also put, if you have a question, great. But also, we're curious to know what type of photography businesses y'all are interested in, what you're starting or are looking to start. And so we can kind of get an idea of who's out there today. So you want to be able to drop that in the chat, go for it. So I've got like, of course, my little list of questions here that I was thinking of, and instantly each one that I wrote, I was like, oh my gosh, I have a story for every single one of these. And I think my students have heard my stories plenty of times, but I'd love to hear y'all's. So I think I want to start with, okay, this is always the big one. At what point did you realize I should be getting paid for this? Like, what was the catalyst where you went, oh, this is a lot of time? Like, was there a specific moment that hit you? Was there a specific client or a job or a gig? Or was it just you sitting at home going like, I gotta send an invoice, man. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Because I think that's a big question a lot of our students have, is like also coming with that guilt of like, I don't know if I want to charge money, but at a certain point you have to start. So I want to know what y'all think about that.
Should we go in order, or is it just kind of we start talking?
Go for it.
I think, well, for me, like, it's kind of funny because I mean, I am younger, so I think from the start, I myself kind of dumbed myself down a little bit in my work, thinking that, and I also just love to take pictures. So it was really easy for me to do free work because I love it. I love people and I love collaborating. I would say the biggest thing is definitely the collaborators that I started working with, other people that were higher in the industry and have a lot of experience. They were noticing my work and they were saying, wow, like, you must be getting paid a good bit. And I was like, well, a lot of it is free. And they're like, start charging. But I would say a funny story is how I went to New York once to shoot with a really big agency in New York, and I saw that some models in the shop would use my photo as like the main company card to get them book jobs. And a lot of these photos that I did for them were mostly free. And I was thinking in my head, logistically, they're booking huge jobs or walking huge shows from my photo, but I never even got credited or paid for it. So that definitely was a big catalyst. And now it's like I only do free work if it's something I genuinely really want to do and it's going to benefit me. But I would say for any student, you have to understand that if your photography profits somebody else, don't be scared to charge because they're making money. You should be making money too. So yeah.
That's a huge point of it, where you get to see other people start to make money off of your own work, and you go, wait, hold on.
Yes, definitely.
And then we all
What
have
about
heard
me?
those horror stories. Yeah, exactly. It's like we've all heard those horror stories of folks who will also sell their photos for like a total buyout. And then all of a sudden it's like the next big advertisement for like Reebok or something. And it's like, oh, dang it. So getting
Yes.
into like, that'll get into the whole licensing deals and all of that. We talk about more of that like in our business photography club, and we have a whole day on like licensing. But yeah, oh my gosh, absolutely.
I would say I have something similar. When I first moved to Atlanta, I was doing a lot of testing and collaborating, working with a lot of athletes and fitness models. And I remember I was working with one athlete and they used the image that I took to sell like a DVD course on something that they were teaching. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on. And then that's when reality started to hit like, no, stop being nice, start charging your worth and stop thinking that you're just young in this craft. Oftentimes like Timothy said, oftentimes when you see people starting to monetize off of your images is when you get that reality check, like, I'm not even getting paid for this yet. It's time to start charging my worth.
Oh
Mm.
my gosh, absolutely. Yep. It's like we are just saying, it's like you're going to see it on something and go, oh man, I could have got a licensing deal off of that. Yeah, Tiffany.
Yeah, so mine is a little bit different. Now, I think I relate to those stories when it comes to charging appropriately, because that's like a whole different, there's a lot of stories on why I raised my prices. But in terms of starting to charge, I think for me, because I was working another job, I was working in the school system as a teacher and a reading coach, and I had two young children at home. And my like sole motivation was I want to be able to replace this money so that I am able to stay at home. And so for me, it was never an issue of like, am I going to charge? I knew I couldn't afford just another hobby or like an expensive hobby. I needed to be able to make money to justify quitting and leaving my job. So pretty much right away, I was like, we got to figure out how to make this make some money.
I think that's another good point as well, is like when to raise your, and knowing when to raise your prices too. A lot of the times I'll tell my students, it's like I do this thing where it's like I tell my students one thing, but I did a totally separate thing. And I'm telling them because of what happened to me. So I'll tell them like, yeah, it's like start to compare yourself with other photographers in the area. If your quality is at their level, then make sure you're pricing at that level. I had to have someone literally tell me, I'm sitting there at the Woodruff Art Center, I'm photographing an event. One of the main donors of the Woodruff Art Center, a very like successful older gentleman in business, is going, how much do you charge? And I told him, and he just gave me this look of like, you gotta be kidding me. And he was like, you need to raise your prices today. And I was terrified because I was like, no, then they're not going to hire me back. And I don't think I'm going to be able to keep this job because it's technically a nonprofit, even though it's one of the largest nonprofits in Atlanta. I don't think I'm going to be able to get more work if I do blah, 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 blah. I raised it. Everything was fine. Everything was totally fine. It took this dude who wasn't even in the industry to sit there and tell me what, raise the darn prices. You have to be able to make a living. So it's not just paying for, it's not just saying, hey, go ahead and charge for it, but it's being able to actually make a decent living off of that. So Tiffany, I know you mentioned like you had a story about that too, where it's like, oh gosh, I really need to start charging more.
Yeah. Do you want me to share about like when to know when to raise
Oh yeah.
prices? Yeah. So there's been several different points, and I think we all like I'm sure B and Timothy can relate too, but different points in your career where you're like, okay, it's time. It's time to change. For me, sometimes it's come after a really difficult client when I'm given like all the requests and like I need this and it's usually from like it's been from a mini session that's, the lowest ticket offer, but the highest demand of work. And so usually at those points, I'm frustrated and I'm like angry editing. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to charge for this next time because I don't want to feel this sort of feeling anymore. So those are always like strong indicators. Another indicator for me is when I'm feeling burnout and when I'm feeling like I'm overbooked and I'm just doing all of these sessions. I'm not having time for my family. I'm feeling stressed and drained. And then I know that there's an issue in my pricing because if I am feeling at my max, then I need to be able to raise those prices so that I can take on less. And there's always that fear, like what you're saying, Sarah. And I just talked to somebody, a mentoring client today about, but if I raise them, I'm going to lose clients. And it's fear. It's not based in fact. It's based in our fear of what's going to happen. But you just gotta do it. Just gotta do it.
Because otherwise you'll just, it's exactly that. I love that you brought that up in terms of like the burnout aspect of it, because that's what will happen is you're having lower prices. So you're working harder. So you're getting more, sure, you're getting more gigs, but you could be doing half the work you deserve to be doing half the work for twice the price at the end of the day. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fia, I wanted to
Yeah.
let you get in there too.
Yeah, I would definitely say I've had similar experiences when I'm editing too much and I'm sitting there like I should have hired an editor and I should have charged to be able to afford an editor. So I'm getting my time back, you know. And I think that's the biggest thing as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, when you realize that you're only exchanging time for money, is when you start to realize I need to start pricing fairly so that I'm able to get my time back, especially if you're a mother, if you're a wife, if you like to spend time with your family, figuring out what that balance looks like and being able to charge your worth, but then also charging your worth to be able to hire a team. Because I don't come to photo shoots by myself anymore. And I'm like, everyone on my team has to get paid. And I want to make sure that everyone can be accounted for. And being okay with knowing that I may not have a high quantity of clients, but I have a high quality of clients that are paying my rate,
Mm-hmm.
and I can work smarter and not harder.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think it's like, I think someone I had like in a kind of a weird way, but describe it almost like McDonald's versus like Kevin Rathburn Steakhouse. So it's like you can have like, sure, you can get a burger at McDonald's and you can get a bunch of them for really cheap, but it's not going to be the best thing in the world. And you can get, and it's fine. It has its place and it's there. Or you can work yourself up to being the Kevin Rathburn and doing just like these absolute pristine burgers to be able to put out instead for a much higher price. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's like kind of thinking about it where it's like everyone else, every other industry is doing it. But for some reason in the creative field, a lot of the time we feel like it's not worthy because we're not putting like a physical, like not necessarily not a physical, but it's more of the creative type that we're bringing to the table. And a lot of times feel like that's not a tangible thing that we can start charging for, or at least comfortably being able to bring that up to like the next level. And that was like I think Paul, hey Paula was asking, how do you come up with a fair price? So when you're either starting your pricing or increasing your pricing, what does that look like? Do y'all do research? Do you just go on gut feeling? Do you have Excel spreadsheets happening? So what's going on there?
So when I first started, I actually got some advice from a mentor where they're like, look at your overhead. So I was using how much my apartment cost at that time. And I'm like, if I want to only do 3 shoots to cover my apartment, this is the minimum I'm going to walk out the house for. And I started using that as a baseline. But then the longer that I was in this industry, I just started asking my peers to find out more about industry standards when it came to sports photography and shooting sporting events, or when it came to doing portrait or branding sessions, or when it came to commercial licensing, because we know that's a whole nother conversation. But if you're not sure where to start, I would always say start with your overhead and use that as a blueprint to figure out what you want your median to be, and then go up from there.
So that would be
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, an Excel spreadsheet kind of thing where you're
Right,
listing and list things that you maybe don't necessarily realize are an overhead.
right.
Like I know for me, I was like, oh yeah, I have to charge for using QuickBooks. Like that's still part of it. Even though I'm putting this information in QuickBooks, I still need to charge
That's
for this
fun.
thing that I'm currently calculating how much to charge. Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
really try to think of all those little things. Yeah, Tiffany.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm like, yes, yes, sis, all those things. I was just in a photography group today, on Facebook where somebody posted their pictures and said, and I see this all the time. They post their pictures and they say, "What would you pay for these?" And I'm always going to be the one that says, it really doesn't matter what anybody in this room would pay for these. And I know when I was starting out, I would look at some photographers that were really popular in my field, like in family photography. And And then I would go and look at their websites, and I was shocked at how low their prices were, even though they are, you know, these huge names in the industry. And I felt like, well, how can I charge this when they're not even charging this and nobody knows who I am? But it came down to kind of like what B was saying. It came down to, okay, what do I need to make to be profitable? And looking at, like you said, all the expenses and, you know, accounting for your website and your monthly subscriptions and all the little things, it really adds up when you start looking at and your equipment costs. Like if my camera and my laptop go down today, how do I replace them? You know, factoring in all of those. And so I'd look at that. And then I'd also look at how many sessions can I realistically do in a month or do I want to do with my schedule? It's always a lower number for me because we homeschool, we have kids. And so, you know, looking at, okay, if I only want to do X amount of sessions this month and I have this and I need to bring in this much and I have this much expense, then it just becomes like a math problem of, okay, well, this is my minimum charge. And it kind of takes the emotion out of it for us that feel guilty and that are really empathetic. And, you know, like, oh, but I don't want to overcharge and I don't want, it takes all that kind of out of it. And it's just numbers. It's like, well, this is the number that I need. And so this is where I'm going to have to charge. And I would also say that if you're not confident in your work being priced there, then that gives you something to really work towards. Like, okay, I'm going to get my work to a place where I'm okay with the numbers that I need to be charging.
I think that's like a really good point, and taking the emotion out of it, and an easy way to do that, because there can be those moments where it's like you could have everybody telling you this is what you should charge, this is what it should be, and this is how much you deserve and earn and all of that. But for some folks, until you put it down on paper in front of you and realize that if I don't charge this amount to be, and realistically, how many sessions can I do per month? So and so, like in terms of your life and everything happening and what you can schedule. Because I know a lot of us will start off, like we were saying, is like booking, like, oh, I can do 25 sessions a month, no problem. Where it's like, no, you can't, honey. I'm here to tell you right now, no, you can't. No, you can't. Yeah, Timothy.
I was also gonna mention it's kind of I love how we're all here from different industries because I would say my experience in fashion has been a little different just because fashion is an industry where a lot of money is not really made for creatives. Like it's pretty well known that a magazine or etc. Like a lot of our payment is PR. So for me, I've always kind of thought about PR alongside money. So to be honest, what has helped me financially as well in fashion is to think about PR as well on top of finances. So, for example, if a model who has over 100,000 followers, say roughly, if I'm going to shoot with her or him, and I know they probably can't afford a certain amount of money or they don't want to pay me, say, thousand, et cetera, dollars, I will definitely lower our price because I know that if they post my work, I'm getting clients from them. And that's just kind of like something that I wanted to mention that, especially if you're interested in going to fashion photography, is like there's also PR involved. So sometimes do something, for free or for lower if you know that in the end it will get you more clients because, for example, a lot of exposure that I get then helps designers notice me and then I actually get paid a lot more than I would have if I like say charge that model, the full price. So I would say it's interesting because I would say the biggest thing financially to me, I think, is understanding the industry that you're going into. So like B and like Tiffany said, you have to look at who you're kind of, who are some great people in the industry that are also working and you say, oh, I want to work like them. I like their work. I like their clients and see what they're charging. And you kind of have to frame your work and, your quality of work, et cetera, around that as well. So I would say you have to look at it very objectively, but yeah.
Yeah, it can be so wildly different from like one to the next. And I think, but I love what you mentioned, which is kind of like the PR aspect of it, this overarching thing where it's like since we are in such a small industry, and I mean small, very small, making sure that we're not burning any bridges or creating as many bridges as we possibly can, especially at the beginning, I think is so huge. I will still to this day run into people who will say, "Oh, you interned for Amy Stein back in 2010 in New York, didn't you?" And I'm like, how do you know that? How the hell do you even know that information about me? That is insane. So it's like uh, having those connections and making sure that those connections stay stable, and that you're not the person who is going to say to your client, "Oh, well, I'm gonna go ahead and do this, blah blah blah." So it's like, I think that there's these little moments of nuance. I had that very recently with the client where I was like, "Oh gosh, if I say no to this or try to work away where it's sticking to like more of like sticking to my contract kind of thing, then giving a little bit of wiggle room," was like, you know what, they were recommended by one of my really good clients who've worked with me for a really long time, and I don't want them running back to my old client saying like, "Hey, they decided to charge us for blah 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 even though we didn't," and it's like, oh my gosh. So those are those little kind of things, I think, just with time, that you, because we could sit here all day and tell you a bunch of stories, but that's definitely one of those things that with time, when you start to feel, when are those moments that you really say, "Sorry, I have to put my foot down on this and I have to charge you for this type of thing," or the moments where you might step back and go, "Okay, all right, I usually charge, but we'll make a little bit of like a kind of a way to make it work because of how you got there." I don't know if you had any story. I don't know if you guys had any like thoughts on that notion of getting that balance going.
I was going to say one trick that I learned was speaking in the third person. So I realized whenever I was sending emails as myself and just talking as myself, because I was so emotionally invested in my business and in my prices, that sometimes I would shortchange myself. So I realized when I started talking in the third person and putting someone else's name at the signature before I actually got an assistant and actually just started speaking the third person, well, B services are at this rate, I had a different level of confidence,
Yes.
right? Like it's when you're speaking with your mentees and you're speaking with other individuals, you can tell them what to charge confidently. But sometimes when it comes to your own work, we always just have like that little girl or that little boy in me that's just like, "Oh, well, are you sure you want to charge that?" So I started just speaking in the third person, and it really started to help me be a little bit more confident in my business, confident in the way I spoke about my business, in the way that I spoke about what I was offering, how much I was pricing, and not feeling like I had to overly explain, "Well, this is my price because I'm doing X, Y, and Z," but standing firm and true to what my pricing model is and what I'm offering to the client.
I think that that's
Yeah,
definitely
I
like,
love
yeah.
that.
Oh, that's so good. That's such a hack because I realize I do it too, but I didn't even realize I was doing it. Or almost, I talk about like Syracuse Studios as like this massive like moving business with tons of people and employees and stuff. No, it's just me. It's just me. It's just me. But if I talk about it as its own entity, which legally by the tax code it is,
It is.
it is. It's its own thing. It's not me. It's just over here. So in that way, it's like it makes it easier. Yeah, Tiffany, go for it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm like, let me write that down.
Yeah.
Tiffany's assistant said.
I'm already making up my assistant name. Yeah, I name him Mike. Yeah.
Mike, I think
Yes.
mine's gonna be Jordan. I don't know. It's gonna be Jordan. Um, so one thing I was gonna say with that too is I think when you charge profitably, it does free you up to be able to give generously. And so, being
Yeah.
able to have your rates where they need to be so that way when something comes that maybe is not priced where you need it to be or where you'd want it to be, but it's something that aligns with what you're feeling or you're feeling called to, then you're able to say yes to those things because you're making enough to take some time to do these other projects. Like I recently had an organization reach out to me that does sort of like a almost like I think it's called like one day where it's like for patients that are really terminally ill and they kind of
Yeah.
curate this whole day for them and it usually ends in a photo shoot with their family. And so, the pay for that is it's pretty much not, it's really, pretty much not a paid thing. But because I'm charging enough, then I was able to really think about like, okay, let me look at my calendar. Yes, I have time to do this and edit it and not make it about making the money. But when my calendar is so full of sessions and I'm burned out, then I'm not able to say yes to these other things.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So it's like essentially when you're managing your time correctly, you're able to actually do stuff that, you like to do. Have, feel better, feels about giving back and all that.
Hmm.
Yeah. I kind of along some of these lines that you were talking about, another question that I had for everyone was sort of looking back because of course when we're becoming photographers we start off with a creative skill set and then all of a sudden we have to learn all of these other things on top of it, things that we never thought we'd have to learn in a million years. Like I know the US tax code way too well at this point in my life. So, and then you have to start devoting pieces of yourself and your energy to these different aspects and these different hats that you're having to wear constantly. So, whether it's doing payroll or social media or marketing or sending out emails to doing editing or and all that, it's like looking back and kind of where you're at now in a more stable place, where do you wish that you had allocated more of your time to be or allocated less of your time to build the business that you've built today?
Ooh.
That's a good
It's a good
question.
question.
I mean, I'm not sure this completely answers the question, but just kind of like for everybody interested, I feel like I was going to mention that I feel like as a photographer, we're all here photographers. It is a very social job. I think it's very social when it comes to your clients. It's very, like a lot of our clients are our friends or et cetera, or they know us through friends. And I feel like you do kind of have to be a really good businessman or woman, as you said, Sarah, like, knowing the tax code. So I would say, I'm not sure this is along the lines, but I would say it just embracing the fact that, yes, it's a creative field, but the best photographers out there in the world, the most iconic photographers through time, were always amazing businessmen too. And they could always talk to you. They could talk to clients. They talk to designers. They were friends with designers. So I would say embracing the fact that this is a social job, and there's nothing bad about it, and embrace the fact that there's business involved, and that's cool. Setting standards, setting boundaries is cool when it comes down to it.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
I would
I'm going to get
definitely
into the
say,
setting boundary stuff in a minute. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. B, go for it.
yeah, but I would definitely second that. I know so I graduated with my BFA in photography, and when you graduate with an arts degree, you think you know everything. And when I moved to Atlanta, I was so busy focused on mastering lighting and doing all these different things on the creative end that it took me a while to understand that the business side is much more important than the creative side. And that's what I would have spent more time doing. Luckily, I was able to get a mentor early on to actually help me understand more of the business side of it. But that's something I would have wanted to do even in college, learn more about that business side and put more practice into that, because at the end of the day, you can be an amazing photographer, but the ones that we see that are doing the jobs and that are lasting the longest are the ones that have great business models. They're the ones that know what it's like to be a business person first and a creative second. So, and I always like teach it to a lot of the people that I mentor as well, where it's great to do your test shoots. It's great to do all those different things. But if you don't have structures in line of how to send out invoices, of how to network, of how to do all these different things, it does not matter when the big opportunity comes and you don't know how to fill out a W-9 form. Or if you don't know how to build out a team or hire a wardrobe stylist and all these different things. So definitely spending more time of understanding the business of the industry that you're going in. Again, like sports is different from family, it's different from events, it's different from all those things. And commercial is just a whole different beast. So really diving into understanding what field that you're going into and doing the research that's needed to understand what it looks like as a business professional first and then a creative second.
Hmm. Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think that the business side is very underserved in photography. And I know in 2018 when I started, everything was about like shootouts, and I love them. And I learned a
Yeah.
lot of my like technique and things like that through shooting, but there was almost no retreats or workshops or conferences on business. It was all about the dress and the like family and the mountain somewhere. Like nothing was about like how do you charge or how do you create an email workflow and like all these. There was nothing on all of those things. And so I think we as photographers, a lot of times on socials, our feed is full of photographers. And so we're comparing ourselves to this photographer over here that may be really amazing. But our clients aren't looking at 100 photographers. Like they're just looking at a few. And so they don't really know all the nuances of like, oh, wow, like you really nailed this like composition thing just right. Like they don't know. They're like, oh, it's my family. Like they're so cute. Like, and so I think when I finally started realizing that this wasn't about shooting, it was about business management and marketing, then I started looking for mentors that not only had the shooting style that I was in, but also were running successful businesses. And I looked at their pricing and I looked at like, and if they weren't charging, I was like, well, I'm not learning. Like I need to learn from somebody that really is mastering the business side of things as well. And that's where I would have put more money in the beginning. Like not all the client closet dresses and things, they're great, but they're not bringing in the profit.
Yeah, I think that was my thing where it's like I put so much money into kind of these like little random one-off stuff. Like I was like, ooh, stamps.com gives me a scale to send what? Like, what am I sent? Like, I don't know. I don't even know what I was sending. But I was like, business people have this, but without actually thinking about how I would utilize it. I think I spent so much money on like things that I thought that business people needed. And I would get like a CRM system for like, my 15 clients. Like all this random stuff, subscriptions and whatever, because it was something where I was like, yeah, people have this, right? But they're not in our business. They're not doing what we do. And being able to take out and spend the time to actually get one-on-one with people, I think would have been more of what I wish I would have done early on, and reaching out to folks and keeping up with them more on like regular schedules, and bugging, not even bugging, but like reminding my clients to be like, hey, I still exist. Did your kids get older? Great, let's hang out. Like, or like the Woodruff, like I'll be every once in a while, because I think the other thing that people forget, especially in my industry doing event photography, is we are the last on the list of the people to contact. I cannot count how many times I've showed up an event and they've said, oh, hey, it actually moved to blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no one CC'd me? No? Dang it. So we're always the ones at the bottom of that list, when it comes to doing events. And because there's a billion and a half things going on. My mom did trade show booths growing up. So I basically like lived in convention centers when I was younger. And so seeing how these huge worlds take place and how many moving pieces there are, we're in the event photography world, if this is something that you're interested in getting into, we are a tiny cog in that machine. But of course, when the day happens, we are the most important person in the room, and we have to be exactly on point and be exactly. So it's really funny to watch sometimes how clients can sort of like waver and change on how important you are on that list, depending on how close we are to the event. But because we're the last person, a lot of the times once we're it's kind of like a one and done, and then it's like, okay, cool, bye. Don't I think I wish I would have known better to not be as scared to reach back out to those clients to get them to be returning clientele, or at least just to say, refer me to a friend or a colleague or someone, because I think a good chunk of my clientele has come through referrals. It's kind of like a snowball that started, and once it started rolling, that was another stupid thing I spent money. I did like Facebook advertising before it was good or even knew what I was doing with it. I spent like $20 and I was like, this will get me. I was like, no, that doesn't do anything. So don't know if you guys had thoughts on like kind of where you see yourself in that regard, in that way, I think, if I phrase that correctly, even.
So
Like,
you're asking like where do we spend money on that we didn't have to?
yeah, I think that's always like a big thing because especially
Yeah.
when you're starting off with your business, it's like, or it's you're thinking, I'm just going to spend money, and if I make money, if I spend it, then it's going to come
It's gonna
back
come
to
back.
me. No, here to say no. Yeah, Timothy, go for it.
I mean, that's something that is genuinely a very dumb thing that I did and used to do. But when I started to study fashion photography, I was so in love with just the process of doing it. So I started taking a lot of images and getting them printed. Can you guys hear me? Sorry.
It was breaking up a little bit. Sorry, Timothy. It was if you can
Okay,
repeat
sorry
it, go
guys.
for it.
Yeah, sorry guys. But, I used to spend a lot of money so photos that I never sold or used because I just wanted to have print and prints are expensive. So I was,
It's still breaking up. Oh no! But if you get a chance, oh, and then it's gone. Oh, Timothy. Oh, we're gonna get it back. Yeah, these. I think that was kind of it. It's like things that, or I think the other thing is like, especially in our industry, is spending money on equipment and going like, if I get this thing, I will be the best photographer. Like if I get this one, and
Lens.
so now,
This one
yeah, if I get this
lens,
one
just this
light,
one lens.
if I
Yes.
get this one thing, it's like it, and it's like, oh gosh, I wish I would have just shaken little Sara and been like, no, sweetheart, it's sitting in a closet collecting dust now. What do you like?
Well,
So,
and yeah, like speaking of that, so and even now I'm better at making those decisions, but it's still really hard because we're artists. And so our heart is naturally to like to fuel the artist side, which is still important. Like you still need to do that. But I think you have to have those conversations with yourself about, okay, is this the best use right now? I've had a lens on my wish list for probably about a year and a half now. And every once in a while I'll be looking online. I'm like, man, and I could just buy it. But what's keeping me from doing that right now is one, I know that my clients aren't going to know a difference. Like it will not cause them to hire me if I buy this lens. No one else will hire me in addition because of this lens. It's purely a desire of mine that I want it. But there are things like building my greenhouse that I will rent out to, do sessions and things like that. Like that investment will turn around and bring me money. And so I'm having to make that decision. Like until I get some return on some other things, it's not necessary right now. But it's still on the sticky note. Like have the things and don't rush to get them, just kind of wait and like keep it there so that it's still there. It's not going anywhere. And when you're like, now is a great time to just splurge, then you have your little list going, I guess.
Yeah, and I think especially, we live in the day and age where Canon's dropping 5 lenses a year and
oh,
5 camera bodies and, all these different things. And it's like oftentimes we feel as if as creatives starting out or even just even seasoned, where it's like, okay, if I get this new camera, but like Tiffany said, your clients really don't know the difference. They don't know that you bought a new camera body. And it's about being wise and making smart business choices and understanding what is a need versus a want in your business. Like when the DJI Pocket Osmo 3 came out, one of our studio manager was like, oh, I want one and I'm going to spend like, it was like $800. And I'm like, we have the first one. And I was like, if you'll use it in these 6 months, then I will let you buy it. And she never picked it up. And she's like, yeah, you were right. And I'm like, yeah, I was like, of course, social media makes it seem like the best thing and everyone's using it for content. But the reality is are you going to use it and how's it going to make you make more money in your business? If it's just to be a fad, then you're just throwing away money at that point. So I've had to learn. And I mean, I feel like we've all learned that the hard way when you look at your bank account and was like, this was not worth the investment. And now it's just sitting here catching dust. And I can't even sell it because I'm still emotionally attached to it, you know? So I always say, think about the needs versus the wants and challenge yourself. Like before I buy equipment, I would rent it and see if I actually need it and does it actually make a difference in my business and what I'm doing. And if not, then I'll just rent it on the as needed basis.
I love that. And actually, I always even say, like, photographers was asking me, like, what I use, etc. And they should say, no, you're here.
Oh no, Timothy, it's still, I know, it's like, it's still being such a, oh no. It's like every time when he's like, oh yeah, totally. And then
it goes.
It's all good. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry. It's a dead zone.
No, it's okay. It's
sorry,
okay.
guys. But yeah, I was just saying, just to know you're geared to the max before you invest into something, you know, more expensive or better, because when it's not too good, it's like,
yeah, it's like, I think
I would say reach what you already have.
Yeah, use what you have to the max first. Like use what you have until it can't take you any further.
Yeah, right. Yeah, hands down. And I think that's something kind of like what you were saying, where in this day and age where they're coming out with new stuff and it's not even just like Canon and Nikon. It'll be, like a new company that you'll see advertising a cool light on Instagram. And it's like, ooh, yeah, I want a spotlight. I don't have a spotlight yet. Let me get a spotlight. And it's like, oh my God. So thinking in terms of like that regard, one of the other questions I had for y'all was sort of how things have shifted and changed through the industry, especially like, I think over the last like 3 to 4 years, at least for me, like I've seen a major change in how people are using social media. And but in having that be kind of like a little bit of a double-edged sword in some way, because it's like, here's this whole thing that we have to take on now. It's this whole extra hat now that we're learning to do, which we did not have to do when I started. But at the same time, it's really fun because then it's bringing me more connections with other photographers. It's in some cases bringing me more clientele. So kind of in that way, where here's a place where we are, and this is a different world as we're evolving through it. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that side of like social media, that being like, yeah, it's really cool, but also I hate it.
I have a love-hate relationship for social media. And everyone's like, oh, you have so many followers and you post often. And I was like, I hate every minute and every second of it. But I had to realize that it was a part of the game, you know? And once you start realizing, like, okay, for me, it started opening a lot of opportunities for jobs, for sponsors, for speaking events and things like that, and even clients. I pitch to clients on Instagram now and LinkedIn and all those different platforms. So once I realized that you can use this as a tool in your business and not to be so emotionally connected to the likes or how many views I'm getting, but actually using it as part of your business strategy, I think it starts to make it a little bit more easier. I started using Notion calendar to like plan out my thoughts and to not to overthink it and not to put too much pressure on it, but understanding that it is part of marketing now. It is somewhat needed now. Not everyone needs it for their business, but if you are looking to add it as a stream of income, as a stream of networking, as a stream of anything, understanding that it's just the game and learn how to play the game when it comes to social media. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, picking your platform, picking one or two, not trying to be present on every platform there is, because that gets so overwhelming. But looking at, okay, where am I even getting response, or where am I getting bookings from? Like when you inquire on my website, it asks like, where did you find me? So I just like to know that, like, is anyone even finding me on this outlet, or am I just, posting just for funsies? So I think being able to really, limit your outlets and be consistent on those. Like set your days. If you're like, I'm gonna post 2 times a week, set those days and post on those 2 days every week. It builds trust, and people, clients will see, okay, they're consistent, they're showing up, and so I think that's one way with socials. And then I also think really just trying to engage and build connection is important. Not just posting, look at this great picture, isn't it nice? Like, people are past that. I think people are craving connection, and they want to connect with businesses that are real people. They want to see you on your social. Like, having your picture on there once in a while, having, showing up in your stories, engaging with people. They want to see the person behind this business, not just, these like chat GBT captions. Like, you still have to make them, start there and get your ideas, but then you got to make it you. And people will know when you're being authentic or not.
I think that's the one thing that we're facing now is like that balance of using AI when I think of like kind of this future part that we're going to. And yeah, those caption writing ones, it's like sometimes it's fine. Like sometimes you're just like, look, I just need a thing to like just tell people what this is. Done. Got it. Fantastic. But then there's other times where I think there's that fine line of telling people what something is just as like a factual type of thing versus using the chat GPT and the other AIs to try to like mock authenticity. I think people can clock it. I think
Yes.
people are starting to get smart about knowing what is and isn't more accurate in that respect. It's like kind of one of those things that yes, it's getting easier, but we still have to learn how to be able to use it in that way. I think that's something that looking like uh there's so many things out there now in terms of resources for photographers that I wish I had when I started. Like just the fact alone of having a website that is like shoot proof or pixie set or something where it's like all your client really like sending an invoice and their gallery and their contract in one thing. So we're not having to do what we used to do where it's like, here's a Google Drive, here's a Dropbox, here's your pictures through like a CD, like, and all of this other random stuff to try to piece it together. And how much information is also out there on platforms like YouTube and TikTok. Like, if you are interested in lighting setups, you can literally just go on YouTube or TikTok and say, what was this? Like, photographers are always like, hey, here was my type of thing. And I think that's another really cool thing that's been happening recently is photographers are more um, likely to share their experiences kind of like we're doing here, hi, but also share like their setups and their process. I don't know how y'all felt, but when I was coming up, it was this very guarded thing for photographers,
Mm-hmm.
like asking
Mm-hmm.
someone's what even just like, oh, what equipment did you use? They were like, don't ask me that. Or where did you take that picture? And they'd be like, you have to find your own locations. Like, it was very weird. So I want to know what y'all's thoughts are on like guarding that information versus sharing it, and what if there is a line with that, or if you're just like, no, free for all information
I
here.
So when I started doing, I used to do photo shoot breakdowns where I would actually do YouTube videos breaking down my whole lighting setups and everything like that. And I had a family member say, don't give away all your secrets. And I was like, it's not a secret. At the end of the day, what's for me is for me. So no one's going to steal my client. No one's going to steal any of my job opportunities. Like, I always think about it in that mindset. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what I also wish that I had growing up. I wish that there were more resources. So I do a lot of workshops, I do a lot of education, I do a lot of free coaching calls and things like that because you could go on YouTube and get the same information. And of course, it's still part of my business strategy as well, but I also realize when you give, you get, and there's so many people that cannot afford to go to a college and learn this or may not have as many resources. And me putting out my lighting diagram does not mean that you'll be able to get the exact same image or that your client's going to get the same experience as well. Because at the end of the day, they're not just hiring you for your work, they're hiring you for the experience of working with you. And that's something that you really can't multiply. So I'm not really threatened by it. I love teaching. I love saying, here's my lighting setup, go have at it. I hope it works for you. And if not, just come back again and we can tweak it together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that I think it's okay to have boundaries. And I think sometimes because there's different types of people. There's those that genuinely like want to learn from you and want to put in the work. And then there's those that are just taking. And I know that it's, sometimes we can feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm just pouring out but I feel like when you give, kind of what B was saying, when you give to people, then eventually those people a lot of times are the ones that pour into your business. And I know that I've had, people that I reached out when I was starting and then I asked questions and, I tried to be respectful and not like, hey, can you spend 2 hours telling me everything about this, thing, but it might be like, oh, I love this image. Like, can you tell me, you know, what lighting you had or how you, set this up, different things. And I always would say like, if you have time, please don't feel like you have to, and a lot of times those people are the ones that a year down the road when I was ready to like, oh, I really need someone to walk me through this, I thought of those people. Like, I'm going to go to that person. Like they've already invested and poured into me. So I'm gonna, that's who's front of mind. And so I think, I think it's okay to have boundaries. And especially like we talk about locations. I know, Sarah, like that's a big thing is like, I'm not telling you like where this was. If it's a public place, I'm like, listen, your pictures are not going to be my picture. We're different people. We have different like outlooks. We're going to shoot different ways. We have different clients. Like it doesn't matter to me if you're going to this place that I go to. If it's private property, that's a different like scenario because we want to be respectful of those that are letting us, use something that's special or private. But I think giving to the community because when everyone is doing well, like in our community, we all do better.
I think that's such a huge part of it. I know Timothy had to head out. I know he's got just craziness happening on that end. So, but he says he's definitely going to catch up with us, and we've got some cool stuff coming up with Timothy in the future too. I want to get back to it's like, Alan, don't worry, I got you, dude. We're coming back around. I was just vibing with the questions as we're going and just flowing and all that. Yeah, it's like we're here. We're just hanging out. So it's like I want to get back to some of the questions from the chat. It's like, how do you compare your work to another photographer? And I think that's always a really interesting point. So it's like, at what point do you go, hey, maybe I shouldn't be comparing myself as much, or should I be comparing myself more? If anything, I try to always find a line between there and making sure I'm still keeping my peace as a creative, because we are somewhat sensitive sometimes when it's our work that we're putting. As much as people say, oh, it's not, it's a business, you don't have to worry about being so sensitive about what you're, it's like, no, it's like I'm a little sensitive sometimes. I'm sorry, I have feelings. So it's sometimes if I see another one of my clients using another photographer, which they're allowed to do, I guess, fine, whatever. I might go, oh no, did they not like my work or something? Funny enough, each time that's happened, I've come to know that photographer, already knew that photographer. So then we end up just collaborating on other stuff. So at least for me, when I'm comparing myself to the work, I might have a moment of that doubt and going like, oh no, but then I'll usually reach out and say like, hey, what do you do? What do you want to hang out? Do you want to talk about like some of the work and things like that? Do you want to exchange gigs? And then that way they might go, oh yeah, because there was this one shoot that we did and this one thing happened, and then I used this piece of equipment, and then I got to around like this side of the stage and we were over there. And it's like, oh, okay. So it's kind of keeping that piece a little bit, but also trying to get an opportunity out of it as well. Yeah.
For me, I would say, you know how they always say comparison is a thief of joy, you know, and oftentimes,
Yeah.
depending on who you are as a person, some people use the comparison as a way to beat themselves up of like they're not where they need to be. I use it as a form of competition. I come from a sports background, so when I see another photographer, or even when I knew that I wanted to work and shoot with the Atlanta Falcons and things like that, I had to look at that work to see if my work was up to that caliber and up to that standard. And if it wasn't, then I wasn't going to reach out because I know that I'm not qualified or I wasn't ready for that opportunity yet. Or even when it came to shooting campaigns, I had to know, is my work really at the level where I can reach out to ESPN, where I can reach out to all of these different agencies and looking at their stuff and looking at the work that they've done in the past, and then actually having that real conversation of looking at my portfolio like, you're not there yet. And it's okay to not be there yet, but it's also okay of being honest with yourself. You know, I have a lot of people reach out to me on Instagram of, oh, I want to work for this team and I want to work for that team. And I'm like, yeah, but your work's not at that level yet. And they're like, oh, well, when I get there, it's going to look like that. And it's like, that's not how this industry works. You know, clients want to be able to look at your work and know that it's plug and play and know that your quality is already up to par versus hoping that they give you an opportunity and now you're there, you know? So when you're looking at it in terms of that comparison, look at it from more of like a honest feedback, an honest way of giving yourself feedback, and then actually ask for feedback. You know, I always say if you post something on Instagram, everyone who knows you is going to like the photo because you posted it and they know you. But that doesn't honestly mean it's a great photo or it's not, you know, but actually getting real feedback, going to portfolio reviews. I remember my first portfolio review I went to in Atlanta. I went to a modeling agency with my college portfolio. I just had my degree. So, you know, she ripped me apart. And I was like, in there trying not to cry. Like I was humbled really quickly. But luckily, she was like, you know, your work's not there yet, but I will work with you. I will provide you with models and I will help you take your portfolio to where it needs to be, you know? So it's okay of having that criticism and understanding that it is just to build you and to make you a better creative and to make you a better artist and to not look at it as, oh, they're hating or they're being jealous or anything like that. But you need that real feedback to actually challenge you to be better. Because if you think you're already good and you're not challenging yourself to get to the next level, those opportunities, you may not be ready for that next opportunity. And if you do get that opportunity too fast and you blow it, that this industry is this big. So it could be one of those things of, yeah, I hired them for this job and the turnaround time was supposed to be 48 hours. It took them 72 hours and we missed the deadline or we missed this, you know? So it's all those little things actually add up, and all of your experiences and all the practice that you're doing now is leading up to those moments to be able to execute the way you need to execute when you get those dream opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I was just going to say real quick, I know that some folks have to head out a little bit. This is being recorded. I'm going to put this on YouTube later. So if you missed anything, I'm going to send a link out to all the participants if it was through the meetup. I'll just send the link out once I've got it up online. So no worries. So yeah, Tiffany, go for it.
Yeah, I think comparing to be inspired is great. And I think finding artists that you resonate with. I used to do this thing where I would take like an artist a month and I would just study, I'd focus just on their images. And it really helped me because I would just spend time poring over like, what is it about these pictures that I'm so drawn to? And, how can I recreate this in some ways in my own business? And so in those ways, like using it as inspiration and really like, okay, let me take notes. Let me write down things about, this, that, and the other, as opposed to just scrolling and being like, oh, man, like I wish my work looked like this. Like, oh man, my work is trash. Like, and I think when you start hearing that side of it, it's when you know you need to disconnect. Like,
Yeah.
don't get on social media, don't look anymore. You need to step away from it because if it's not calling you to be better and it's just calling you to be more doubtful or more discouraged, then it's really not helping you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that that's definitely something, again, kind of like a little bit of self-care, self-love when it comes to the industry is hard. It's really, really hard sometimes. Not all the time. Sometimes it's really amazing and it's wonderful and it's magical and rainbows and sunshine and unicorns. But when the days when it is really hard, it is really hard. So take care of
Mm-hmm.
yourselves through this process. I know Richard was mentioning, and this is kind of interesting. This is something I'm getting a lot of. Got several mentors, right? Mentees right now that I'm working with who are interested in doing clients to find who would pay for wildlife and landscape photography. Because I know a lot of folks are getting out, taking these amazingly gorgeous photos of every place that I want to go eventually in my life. And I'm basically at this point asking them to just put me in their suitcase and take me wherever. And so here's the interesting thing about wildlife photography and even some other industries in like the photography world. And you'll find that a lot of wildlife photographers teach, or they are, or they do tours with photographers. So kind of like what we do with our workshops and our classes, a lot of our wildlife photographers will lead groups to places that they've found or enjoyed and be able to be sort of the expert guidance in that sphere, in that space. So because it's really, really difficult with any type of fine art photography, period, hands down, to make a living at it. I was in that world for a while. I existed in it and went to New York and basically got completely burnt out by even just existing in the peripheral of that world. So if you're looking to make money off of your photos as prints, there's ways to do it, especially when it comes to getting like an agent and working with an advertising agency to get those photographs in places like hotels, corporate spaces, offices, medical facilities, places that buy photographs in bulk as decor is another really big one on that end too. But that can take a little while to kind of like build up to that level. So wildlife photography, it's so funny. It's like you have people that do wildlife photography and say, well, I get it because I do wildlife photography because I don't want to work with people. But I think people who would work with it or in wildlife photography are the ones that end up working with people the most. So it's kind of like this sort of backwards sort of thing where it's like there's ways, but there's like kind of different, as we've sort of mentioned here, it's like there's different paths that you can follow to make that happen. And reading up on those, going to resources, even sometimes, like I used to do this all the time when I was in school. I don't know about y'all, but I would cold email photographers and say, hey, maybe I had no sense of self. I'm saying it out loud. But I would just email them straight up and be like, what do you do with this? Like, how do you make this happen? X, Y, and Z. So I think it's one of those things where even someone is asking, I love this. It's like, I saw it somewhere. It's someone is asking like, how do you find a mentor? How do you find someone? It's like, how did y'all find yours? And how do they find you to be able to do that with you? Because we do all, and we love our jobs doing that too. So yay.
So I
Yeah.
found my mentor. Oh, so you want to go, Tiffany?
No, go ahead. No, go ahead, B.
So my first mentor, we have a funny relationship because I emailed her numerous times when I was in college and she never responded. And then when I moved to Atlanta, there was an event at her studio and I popped up and I was like, hey, like I act like nothing happened. And I just told her that she was a sports photographer here. She did campaigns for Under Armour, Adidas, all the big campaigns. And I was like, I want to work with her when I moved to Atlanta. And I went to an event that she had at her studio. It was with APA Atlanta. And I just met her and I met her assistant. So I was talking with her assistant. I'm like, yeah, like I would really love for her to be my mentor. And she's like, okay. She was like, just send her a follow-up email after the event and just speak with her. So I spoke with her. We exchanged Instagrams and then she gave me her email and everything like that. And then she told me that she gave me a test because after she followed me on Instagram, we didn't speak for a month, but in that month I was cold testing. So I'm posting photos of athletes, fitness models, people that I was just finding in Atlanta because I just moved to Atlanta. I wasn't from there. And then she reached back out to me and brought me in for an interview. And she was like, I wanted to see how serious you were about your craft. She was like, you told me that you were interested in sports photography. She's like, but I hear that all the time, but I don't see any people put action into it. And she was like, I saw that you were actually actively doing it. And then she was like, I would love to be your mentor. And then we had an amazing relationship from there. And then I reminded her, I was like, by the way, I emailed you like 20 times when I was in college and you never responded. And she was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, it's okay now because we're good, And she was like, but now that I'm older, I understand like sometimes you just get so many emails and you can't respond to everything. But I would always say if you find someone, don't be afraid to reach out to them, whether it's on social media, email. If there are any events that you know that they're going to be at, pop up and just express your interest, because those are the ways that people actually know that you're serious. As well as, I get a lot of people saying that, oh, I want to, they'll reach out to me because they want to shoot for Atlanta Falcons. And I'm like, that's not how you start building a relationship with someone, because now you just sound like an opportunist versus, I want to learn about the sports photography industry. Can you help me or walk me through it? Then those are people that you want to invest in versus the one that just wants a media credential, you know?
I always love those like full circle moments when all of a sudden then you're back in the room with someone more casually that you used to like, you put them like all the way up
On the
top tier, man,
pedestal.
like way up on a pedestal. And then before you know it, you're sitting down having a beer with them and going, you never responded to my email. And it's like,
That's actually
because
how it happened. We
it,
were drinking beers.
and then it happened to me again more recently. And then I was the person that never responded to it. And I was like, oh my God, it's happening.
I'm
Oh
sorry.
no. Here, I'm so sorry. I did it. I'm so sorry. Oh no. Oh my gosh. I know. So yeah, Tiffany, I don't know if you wanted to jump in. I know you had to have yourself muted. Let me see if it'll let me do the thing. I know it'll. Did that work?
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right, good.
Yeah, no, I think in terms of when you're looking for a mentor, I think finding somebody in your industry, like, B had found this person that she really looked up to, finding somebody that you admire that is a step ahead of you or a few steps ahead of, that you can see like, okay, this is where I want to be. I think for me, that's usually how I find my mentors, is just by finding people that I feel like are, you know, far enough ahead that that I'm like, okay, that's where I'm going, but also not like so far. Like, I just, for me personally, I tend to not like want just the people that have like, the million, followers that have, that it's just like a whole team that is mentoring you, and you don't really, it's like, it's just maybe just video record. It's never like a face to face or a Zoom or anything like that. Like, for me, I need to connect with people, and so I don't want to just be like another, one of 10,000 new like people in this course. Like, I really want to feel like, okay, I can get some face time and be able for you to have eyes in my business. So just finding those people that you value what they're doing. And then in terms of, when you're wanting people to even like to pitch yourself, or that you're like wanting to get opportunities, having those conversations, like not starting with like, hey, do you want to buy this thing? Like just this cold like contact out of nowhere, and you're just pitching them and they've never even heard of you, but really starting to engage on their socials or engage on their email list, and being able to like send them, hey, I wanted to introduce myself, and just building relationships with people, being genuine, so that way when it is time for you to pitch the pitch, you're not like you're not feeling like it's inauthentic.
I love that. Yeah, it's reaching out to, I think that's a big thing, and like why I do the school, because it's like I want to be able to like hang out and have a conversation and a dialogue and all of that. So kind of I think the biggest thing is having sort of like a very renaissance view of your education. So it's like pick from everything. And because there's so much now that sometimes it can even feel a little bit overwhelming, which is why I really loved getting to work with people one-on-one, where we can just sit down and go like, girl, you don't even know what to Google. Let's figure it out. Like
Mm-hmm.
so, those ungoogleable things we can talk through. So I know we've gone a bit over. I really appreciate you all hanging out with us so much, especially to Tiffany and B for spending your time. Tiffany, I know you added some links to the chat, and I'm also going to put the link to the workshop page in case you came in through Meetup and didn't see it like through on our website, because that on our website has links to everyone who participated here. So if you want to be able to follow us on Instagram or reach out directly, and like I said, we're going to have workshops. B's workshop is already posted. We're going to be doing, yes, we're going to be going to her studio and doing sports photography. So if sports photography portrait world is something that you are interested in, come hang out with us for that one. Tiffany, we are scheduling because weather has been weathering. For those of you over on the eastern side of the United States, no, pretty much everywhere in the United States at this point. Yeah. And anywhere in the world. It's just weathering. It's June, baby. So we're getting it on the books, and that will be coming shortly. Same with Timofey's. We're going to be doing a black and white photography workshop about like portraits and black and white photography. So stay tuned for all of that. The best place to find out is in our not only this meetup page, but our mailing list. So if you get on our mailing list, I send out emails every single week. I don't spam you. I promise. I literally do not have time to. I put it on there just to be able to send everything out as soon as it's posted. You guys are the first ones to know, to say, hey, this is what we have going on at the school. Here's your first chance to sign up for workshops before they sell out. So yeah, thanks again, everyone. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, B. I'm so excited for everything that we have coming up with y'all, and even more stuff to come. Let's do this again really, really, really soon. I am so pumped.
Awesome. Yes,
Awesome.
it was great.
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Yes.
Thank
and stay
y'all.
warm and dry.
Yes.
Yeah. And dry, that part.
And dry. God. All right, y'all. Have a great
Bye,
night. Talk
guys.
to you soon. Bye.